Hi everyone, my name is Diana and I'm sitting here with our managing partner, Sandra and today we're going to be discussing institutionalized sexual assault. Okay, let's start with the definition. What do you mean by institutionalized sexual assault?
So when we're talking about sexual assault in that regard, we're talking about when it was in an institutional setting. Okay. So somewhere where there was a breach of trust, okay. Somewhere, for example, like a place of worship, okay. Like a university or a school, like a teacher-student dynamic, okay. Anything where workplace, okay. Where there's a power struggle, okay. And a sexual assault occurs, that's basically what we're talking about.
Okay. In those cases, so you have a situation where we have a victim.
Yes.
They have been a victim of sexual assault in the workplace. What is something like that? Like, what are you looking for when somebody contacts you about it? Obviously, it's a sensitive topic for them to talk about it. Maybe they don't want to get in trouble. Maybe they don't want to lose their job.
Listen, everything with sexual assault is difficult. The problem with sexual assault in general is the criminal conviction rate is the lowest. Sexual assault and domestic violence have the lowest criminal conviction rates. Okay. Oftentimes it becomes the he said, she said. Don't forget, when it's criminal, you got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Which is a really high level to get beyond. Okay. So it's a he said, she said, and more often than not, it's a he, and he's going to say, well, she consented. She said yes, she consented. Okay. And then it becomes a matter of credibility. Mm-hmm. And if they can prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay. And if they can, then they get a criminal conviction. Okay. But that's very hard to get.
Right. And that's especially true, I guess, in situations where it's behind closed doors.
Correct.
And there's no like email thread of like any
Correct.
Kind of thing or text message trails.
Or a third party intervener seeing it or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I've had cases with sexual assaults where the woman was brutally raped to the point where she was hospitalized and just brutal. And even that wasn't enough. Even though you would say to the courts, well, obviously she didn't consent to this when body parts of hers are being ripped apart and she has to get surgery. Yeah.
Surgery?
Yeah. And even that wasn't enough for a criminal conviction in one case. So it's very difficult to surpass that burden. So what we have on our end is the civil component. So the civil component is the balance of probabilities, whether it's more likely or not that it happened.
Right. You talked about that with the Hockey Canada guys.
Correct. Yeah. So did it happen? Was it more likely than not? And then it rests on credibility. It rests on the story. It rests on a lot of things. If the person has a history of doing this, if they've done it in the past, all of these things that may not be admissible at a criminal trial, it's all admissible at a civil trial. Right. Everything's admissible. Almost everything's admissible at a civil trial. Not everything. Yeah. And usually goes to weight. Not everything is admissible. I shouldn't say that. Yeah. But it all goes to weight.
But you're looking for, let's say in a workplace situation, you're going to look for like HR complaints on that person.
Correct.
Or anything like that. Like
previous bad complaints. So for example, we find specifically with clergy, which is a really good example. And it's clergy of all denominations. It's not specific. I know we hear about it with the Catholic Church a lot, but it's really not specific to any religion. Unfortunately, it's a difficult topic. But usually when there's one, there's 20. Yeah. Right? So it's like you open up a Pandora's box and they've been doing this for many, many, many years. Right. Coaches with kids, like look at the Larry Nassar gymnastics one, right?
Yeah, that was
this was an ongoing systemic abuse of young women until an adult stepped forward to speak on behalf of these girls. So these things happen all the time. So when they can't get their justice in the criminal system, they can come to us in the civil system. And even though it's crass to talk about money and sexual assault, because it's gross. Yeah. It's gross.
It's not,
But it's more than the money that they get, first of all, to help with their psychological well-being, retraining, getting them into the workforce. Because a lot of these, mainly women, end up drug dependent, alcohol dependent, awful, re-victimized over and over again. We see it all the time. So that's what the money is for. Okay. But more often than not, they just want to hear somebody say, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I guess they're not, like, I don't know in what instances that you can get because I know you'll go to the ends of the earth for the client to like get them what they deserve. And if that happens in those institutions that we mentioned, it's just a matter of like getting that apology, and a lot of them aren't going to ever see that apology because they're not going to get the criminal. At least if they get some sort of criminal conviction, I would think that maybe they would feel a little bit more like rested, and not rested, but
like
feel
the
a little
justice
bit more
is served.
warm about it, and
Yes.
that justice was served. And then on top of that, you come in, then you try to get them a little bit of money out of it as well.
Correct.
In the circumstances of which, like, it's unfortunate because you said that there's not a lot of criminal convictions, and in our case, we can help people with the institution, so we can always go against somebody.
Right.
One of the questions I had, because I saw that recently in the news, there was a girl who was assaulted on university property.
Yes.
Okay, so
that's a big one for us. We have gone after the university before for this same situation. My issue with the university is if the security is not in place.
Okay.
If the security is not in place and there's no sort of fail-safe for the students to protect them,
right.
Then that's problematic.
Right.
And that's where we go after the universities in those hands, saying that they had a duty to protect people and put reasonable measures.
Yeah.
It's always about reasonable. Everything's about reasonable.
Okay.
So you have to put reasonable measures in place. So as long as those reasonable measures are in place, so you come to a big university campus,
Right. Which
and
many are doing right now.
Many are doing, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to mention names
Yeah.
because it was in the course of litigation, but like that has, I don't know, 10,000 cameras, and I'm really just stretching.
Yeah.
And 8,000 of those are pointed at parking because they're trying to get their parking revenue in. That's problematic because the cameras are supposed to be there to keep the students safe.
ridiculous.
Yes, and this is the type of stuff we see.
Okay.
So the security priorities are off.
You looked at all of the thing, and you said the majority of these are the property. The
Yeah,
parking lot?
because you can figure, like, you know, one thing that's amazing is all of the people that call you sort of even anonymously and give you little tidbits of information.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, these are the sort of things you sort of discover through our discovery process.
Okay.
And you find that, yes, so a lot of it's used for things that are revenue generating, not helping people.
Yeah.
So, you know, you see, the name of the documentary, I think it was called The Hunting Ground,
Okay.
where it talked about how universities and colleges, and it was specific to the U.S.,
Literally.
are hunting ground for sexual assault. Yeah. Rampant, and how they're not doing what they need to do. And
Right.
in fact, they're aiding in the cover up.
Right.
So all of this is things that we can do to keep them accountable as much as we can.
And I guess you can also do it in the case, like, okay, so for instance, I don't mean to like steer away from our institutionalized, but in a situation where like there's, let's say, you know, dorm parties or whatever they have, and potentially the university knows there's a problematic person in a group, and it happens like off school property. Is that something that you could potentially like assist the victim with to help them?
It's all case dependent, but the idea is what you knew or ought to have known. So like I had a case in the public school system where there were warning signs that this was going to happen, and they were warned about it, and they knew this was going to happen. There was some communication before it happened, and then it happened.
Right.
So our position was, had you just acted appropriately at the first warning sign, it wouldn't have happened if you took reasonable measures. And and it doesn't have to be heroic measures, and it doesn't have to be insane measures, but it has to be reasonable measures.
Right.
So if you have a real incredible threat, you're dealing with it. Unfortunately, when it comes to sexual assault and women in general, oftentimes we have to scream and yell to get heard and to be understood. And that's why the reasonable measures do not get put into place because, or children, quite frankly, which is also victims. Because I've had
so many of that.
So many, and I've had so many male victims of sexual assault while they were children.
Yeah.
And then they have to deal with these as an adult, and they don't want to talk about it, and there's a shame attached to it. But really, it's the most vulnerable people in society, and they go after them. And then anytime there's institutions involved, usually there's a systemic cover-up.
Yeah.
That's what we find en masse.
I don't know why they're why are they protecting these people? Like, especially in mass corporations where you see a repeat offender doing this to multiple women or multiple, employees and stuff like that. It's just, it boggles my mind how.
Well, look at Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Right. So Harvey Weinstein, you have Miramax, you have this very successful movie company and business. The worst kept secret in Hollywood was that he was doing this. Like literally the worst kept secret.
Yeah.
I remember what's his name from Seth from Family Guy made a joke about it during the Oscars, during his very inappropriate Oscar thing, because it was like literally the worst kept secret in Hollywood that he was doing this. And then
it just took like a couple of brave ladies
to come forward.
And then like you said, then the
walls and then there's strength in numbers, right? And that's the problem. They count on women's their fear. They count on women being scared. They count on women not coming forward and not reporting, and they count on being able to cover it up for their own private gain. And it's horrible. Now I feel like the tide is turning now with the Me Too movement, with a lot of things that are happening. People are more willing to come out. I can see that. But it doesn't change the rates that it's happening.
Oh God, my email, I have alerts on this stuff, and it's just like, it's constant. Like in the news and stuff like that, it is constant. Be it a father to a daughter, a police officer, whatever, somebody in a position of power. It's constant. It's rampant.
Well, but that's the problem.
Get consent.
I know. I know it's a problem, and the bigger problem is that when the perpetrator is not an institution, when it's just somebody you're dating or a family member, which it often is. There's almost nobody to go after from a civil perspective, because usually these people that commit these acts are not the most. Sometimes you have the rich people like Jeffrey Epstein doing horrible things, but in general, it tends to just be like derelicts of society, and they don't really have anything you can go after, no assets. That being said, I did have a case, for example, like that, where a little girl was being sexually abused by her father, and CAS was called and didn't remove her. So now I could go after CAS, because had they may not have been able to prevent the original sexual assault, but the subsequent ones they could have prevented.
They could have removed her from that situation, or what have you.
So sometimes it's worth it to explore it, just in case there's some sort of angle that we can.
I saw one recently. It was really sad. He was a principal of a school, but he was like sexually abusing his daughter. So I don't know, for like, just for example, is that something maybe you could say to the school, like the board, like you employed this person, I don't know, this person apparently was like this pillar of like religious leadership or something like that. So you would find any angle possible.
I would try every angle, but that was like Sandusky, right? Sandusky, they had a statue to the man. He was so revered. He was a full statue for a guy who was taking showers with little boys. So it was, again, the worst kept secret. And it doesn't matter where they are in society, if they're doing wrong, and again, when it's one, it's 20. It's a really especially these people in positions of power, they feed off. They know who's vulnerable. They know who's not vulnerable, and it's not the victim's fault. And they're made to believe it's their fault. And it's a horrible cycle. And the problem is, it just sets you into a cycle of violence and a cycle of sadness and horribleness, and it's very hard to get out of it. Now, the beauty part about sexual assault, and this is the only upside to sexual assault, is that there's no statute of limitations. So if this happened to you as a kid and you just never did anything about it, you can still go ahead with a lawsuit now.
I think you were saying if sometimes something could trigger it
100%,
and then the person's like, oh yeah, I have these flashbacks all of a sudden, and now I can't rid myself 100%. Of them, and this happened to me.
And often what happens, for example, so you're a young child, you get abused by a clergyman or a teacher, and now because you were vulnerable, you now statistically become more vulnerable to more attacks and getting into abusive relationships and substance abuse. I mean, there's a real trajectory here. So
you see that more often than not, right?
Correct. That's so really the problem. And that's where they start to rip into sexual assault victims' credibility, because they often self-medicate and they're re-victimized. Bastards. I know. It's all awful. There's nothing good. The only thing is we try our thing is, okay, you didn't get justice here. You didn't get your feeling of closure here. Let's try it here. Let's use the money to get you off the substance, reintegrate you into society, get you out of the, I was just talking to a victim of sex trafficking. And one of the things I said to her was, what about the hotels that you were trafficked in? What about the hotels you were trapped in? Like, did nobody notice? Because that's another thing. We can actually go after hotels. So like if your pimp
Yeah.
used
You have your
a
spot.
certain
Yeah,
place,
you have your spot.
and they knew or ought to have known that
Yeah.
this was going on, then they had a duty.
Yeah.
You know, doctors have a duty to report.
Yeah.
There's all these people along the way.
Even if, let's say, the hotel, like one of the employees there was in on it with, let's say, a pimp or the sex trafficker,
Right.
The hotel itself, you can still go after them, even if this employee or something had a side deal with this person and getting some money on the side to allow this to happen.
Because they have vicarious liability, means they're responsible for their employees' actions.
That's great. That's good.
So there's all sorts of ways to go after people and do things. Because more people need to speak up, and more people need to, and that's why they have the things now with the hand signals. And you know, you and I have seen when we're out, we've seen like those posters, like if you're a victim of sex trafficking, say this word, like order this drink
to the bartender.
Yes, order this drink at the bartender. And so we're seeing more awareness, which is great.
Yeah.
Because really, it's just preventative at this point, but. Unfortunately, yes, this is a crime that doesn't seem to be going down in any way.
I know because we're a personal injury law firm, we get a lot of stigma for like, you know, oh, you guys are just like money, whatever. But in this instance, I feel like if for somebody, like you said, that is going through all these addiction issues or needs therapy or whatever, there is a beautiful like rainbow at the end for you just, you know, again, with that stigma that comes with it, but at the same time, there's so much good that comes out of it for these people. Yes. Especially when I know you for sure, with the calls that we get, you'll find whoever possible.
Right. Yeah. So look.
So if somebody calls, just what does that look like? They call you and...
They call you, listen, all the victims here are exactly that, they're victims. Yeah. And, you know, obviously we're not angels. This is a business. We make money. This is not a charity organization. This is a business. But everyone that calls here is a victim. Very rarely do we get people who are frauds or liars. Right. We really, really don't. And if you ask any victim, especially a sexual assault victim, would you rather the money or not have been sexually assaulted? The answer is not being sexually assaulted.
Correct, yeah.
So there's no windfall here.
No.
The beauty about working on contingency and not taking money up front is that these people who often don't have money and cannot seek justice on their own or pay the hourly fee.
And majority of the times I bet they cannot.
Right, they cannot. So they can come to a firm like us and get what they need without paying the money. So yes, you can make fun of us, we're the ambulance chasers, we're this or that, we're profiting off of people's misfortune. However, if we didn't exist, these people wouldn't be able to go after who they need to go after.
Right, especially in the case that they can't get that criminal conviction.
Right.
You're going to hit them somewhere else.
Right, and I always tell people, I'm very happy to go out of business and do real estate deals. It's fine. Yeah. If there's no more victims, there's no more issues, then I don't have to do it. So yes, I have to, because unfortunately people like you want a salary, so I do have to charge.
Correct, that is correct.
That's right. Correct. So and there's rent and I have overhead and I have money. So yes, we do charge money. We're not a charity, but I also upfront the fees for the whole litigation, which could be anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 easily. Yeah. And I hold that for 4 years.
And if nothing comes of it,
then it's on me, and that's out of my pocket. So, you know, I'm not pretending to be a saint, but this in particular, this is sort of my passion project, and because I've seen the pain, and a
lot of services, a lot of work that you've done on the board of victim services, and what have you. So you've seen it all.
I've seen it all, and it's you know, if we can help, we always help.
Yeah, I think we really spearheaded to really focus on this area of litigation because of that, because your experience and seeing how, oh my God, often it happens.
And also I'll take more minor cases on this because. Yeah. Even if we're not going to make a huge profit on it, sometimes it's just to make I know I had a member of the medical profession that was it was just, and I don't want to say just because I don't want to make it less, like feeling up a young girl. So it's not the worst. Yeah. It's definitely not good. Yeah. But even that, I'm like, let's do that, because that guy needs to not be practicing.
Yeah, get license revoked.
Right. So I'm not making millions of dollars off that claim, but still. I'm not even making thousands of dollars off that claim. But there's something where there's a principle involved as well.
Yeah, I love that. And just to be clear, I guess it's like there's actual physical sexual assault. Then there's also like verbal assault, verbal abuse, anything that falls under that category. You can do something.
We can, but verbal abuse does have the 2-year limitation. So
Okay.
it's only sexual in nature where there's no limitation period.
Okay, that's good to
So
know.
any type of assaults, it's a 2-year limitation period from the date it happens. It runs from the date it happens, so that's a hard 2 years. Sexual assault, there's none. So if there's a sexual component to it, and sexual component is any unwanted touching or contact or anything like that.
Yeah.
It can be sexual harassment is when it's verbal. Sexual assault is when there's a touching or a contact.
And that can happen. It doesn't matter if
It doesn't
I'm
need to
20
be
years old, 30
penetration.
years old, 5 years old,
Correct.
whatever age. It doesn't matter. You
No,
can-
it's any
that's
inappropriate
open.
sexual touching. So it could be anything, from, like I said, from touching someone's boob to actual penetration.
It's actually, like I said, I appreciate that we do this because like I said, there is some sort of retribution, I think the right word is maybe, to get at the end with what we do here.
Right.
Yeah. If you or someone you know is a victim of sexual assault, you can contact us anytime through any of our channels, be it social media, our phone line, our website, any of those channels that we have, open communication. All of them are free and confidential. They're monitored to be private. So please contact us. Again, consultations are free. We are here to help.
There are no dumb questions.
There's no dumb questions. That's very important. And you'll speak to a lawyer directly and they will go through the process with you, explain everything, and they'll let you know how we can move forward potentially with your case.